languages. Kindly select your channel as follows. Channel 1 for Romania, Channel 2 for English, Channel 4 for Turkish, Channel 5 for Serbian, Channel 6 for Ukrainian, and Channel 7 for Russian. We do have colleagues and partners joining online, and captions and languages channels are enabled. Every one of you got a QR code on the back of the badge with your name. On the QR code, you may find the agenda, the policy brief, and the safeguarding for participation. A graphic recorder will be capturing the day in drawings. And for everyone's comfort, restrooms are signposted outside this hall, as well as a quiet well-being space. It's organized in Dobroja Hall, just behind the booths for translations. We begin in 2 minutes. I would like to introduce one of our partners here, who helped us in organizing the event. It's a team from Red Zebra. Please meet Oliver, Zoe, Patrick, and David. We do have space for everyone to be heard. I would like to invite Oliver on the stage.
Thank you, Justina. It's an honor to be here today in a room full of change makers. We're going to have a moment of connection to each other now. We are united to end violence against children. So before we start, I'd invite you to take a moment to turn to somebody next to you and share with them what is your wish for children. So turn to someone and share with them your wish for children. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And over to you, Despina.
Excellencies, colleagues, friends, welcome. Over the next 2 days, our region comes together with urgency and hope to protect children where they live and learn, at home, in schools, in communities, and online. This is about leadership and action, turning pledges into measurable changes, guided by evidence and by children's voices. You'll hear proven solutions, renewed commitments, and lived experiences. Please keep statement concise. We'll support you to stay on time so every voice is heard. Thank you very much for cooperation. And as we are all here for children, I would like to invite Andreea, member of Romanian Children's Board, to open this important meeting.
A warm good afternoon, everyone. A warm good afternoon, everyone. Ministers, delegates, partners, and friends. My name is Andreea, and I am 16 years old, coming from Galați, Romania, and I am one of the young people who has been a part of this journey. It is both a pleasure and an honor to stand here today in front of you, not as a symbol, but as a voice, among many others, united by the shared purpose to ensure that every child grows up safe, supported, and free from violence. Today's conference marks an important moment in which all of the ideas, promises, and words will turn into truly supportive actions for children in every home, in every community, and in every school. Minister Manole?
Thank you, Andreea. Your words remind us why we are here. And that story begins here in this room with each of us committing to action. Romania is proud to host this gathering and to stand alongside every country represented here. Let this conference remind us that every statistic, it's actually a child, and every child deserves a childhood free from fear. Together, let us make this more than a meeting, let it be a turning point, a moment that accelerates our collective mission to end violence against children across Europe.
Should represent a call to action for everyone. But the upside is that change is actually happening. Across our region of Europe and Central Asia, we have seen new laws, new perspectives, and new ideas emerging. So therefore, progress is ongoing, thanks to people like you who choose to spark or make a change. I am extremely happy to spend the upcoming 2 days with you, and I look forward to getting started. It is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Manole, the Minister of Labor, Youth and Social Solidarity, to share his official opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, Your Excellencies, dear guests. It's an honor for me to be here, but forget about my speech. I had a speech 1 hour before, but I just came from another event about combating trafficking in persons. And at the start of that event, we had a speech made by a survivor of trafficking in person. That's why I want to send a different message. And I want to do it in Romanian because all of you, your professionals, your politicians, your experts, you don't need me to convince you. But I want to deliver this speech in Romanian because I have a message for our society and for our fellow citizens. Așa cum vă spuneam, am fost în această dimineață, evident, un copil. De aceea, și sub impactul emoțional al experienței mele anterioare, m-am gândit că este absolut irelevant să vă vorbesc astăzi despre directive europene, despre legislație, despre proiecte și despre bune practici. Sunt toate pe Google, sunt toate accesibile, la unele dintre ele ați lucrat unii dintre dumneavoastră. Nu este vorba, în foarte multe astfel de cazuri, de violență împotriva copiilor, fie că este vorba despre violență domestică sau trafic de persoane, nu este vorba doar despre legislație. Sigur, există o importanță aparte a întregului aparat instituțional, dar nu-ți trebuie lege și nu-ți trebuie instituții să înțelegi ca om că există niște limite peste care nu poți și nu trebuie să treci. Ce s-a întâmplat rău cu specia noastră încât am uitat aceste lucruri, nu știu și nu pot să explic astăzi aici, dar vreau să vă vorbesc astăzi ca un om care vine el însuși dintr-o comunitate foarte conservatoare. Știți cu toții despre mine că sunt ministrul muncii, e doar o chestiune pasageră, o să treacă probabil în curând. Dar sunt etnic rom și asta nu o să treacă și asta vine sigur cu o istorie întreagă de discriminare și rasism pe care comunitatea din care provin a experimentat-o, din păcate, pentru multe decenii și secole pe teritoriul acestui foarte egocentric continent uneori. Dar nu o să vă vorbesc astăzi despre violență împotriva copiilor romi sau despre rasism și discriminare, combustibili duri, dintre comunitățile din care veniți fiecare dintre dumneavoastră. Există, de exemplu, în comunitatea romă, încă, din păcate, de multe decenii, de multe secole, căsătorii timpurii. Și acolo este vorba despre copii la vârsta minoratului, copii de 10, 11, 12, 13 ani, pe care legea evident că îi definește ca neavând consimțământ suficient pentru a face acest pas al căsătoriei. E foarte corect că avem o astfel de lege. Este evident că niciun copil de 10, 11, 12 ani nu este pregătit să fie părinte, să fie mamă sau tată. Am experiența paternității și știu cât de dificil e și când ești adult, cu atât mai mult când ești minor. Ei bine, sigur că există două motive, cel puțin, pentru care așa ceva încă se întâmplă în această țară. Există un motiv principal, acela că nu ne-am reformat suficient ca și comunitate. Deși cei mai mulți romi sunt integrați în această țară și cei mai mulți dintre noi ne căsătorim, unii chiar foarte târziu, există încă multe comunități conservatoare în care acest lucru încă se întâmplă. Și nu este bun, nu este corect, nu este normal pentru viitorul, pentru sănătate. Fie pentru că este o lipsă de educație, fie că este blocajul într-o cutumă veche și evident neactuală. Nu există altă cale decât legea. Pentru că în cele din urmă, dacă nu există altă barieră în calea bunăstării unui copil, în calea abuzurilor, legea trebuie să reprezinte o astfel de barieră în calea abuzurilor. Și am semnat în urmă cu câteva zile, împreună cu foarte mulți parlamentari din aproape toate partidele politice din România, un astfel de proiect legislativ care să pedepsească acest gen de, până la urmă, violență, abuz împotriva unor copii. A fost și este foarte dureros pentru mine ca rom să simt că este necesar să facem asta. Nu vă imaginați câte mesaje de la oameni pe care unii cunosc, pe alții nu-i cunosc, am primit. De ce faci asta împotriva comunității noastre, au spus unii dintre ei. Nu fac asta împotriva nimănui. Fac asta în favoarea cuiva. În favoarea a zeci și sute de copii din această țară care încă are mame minore, de orice etnie ar fi ele. Fac asta în favoarea unei vieți de libertate pentru acești copii. Fac asta în favoarea necesității de a exista șansa de a merge la școală, de a avea o profesie, de a avea o carieră, de a te bucura de tot ceea ce societatea modernă îți oferă. Am vrut să vă spun asta aici și nu un discurs despre legislație și teme pe care le știți în general, pentru că de obicei schimbarea stă în voință și în puterea de a o face. Și uneori schimbarea poate să cât de dureros și de dificil ar fi, ceva ce învățăm din orice carte de căpătâi a oricărei religii, din orice Constituție, din orice lege, și anume că cei mai vulnerabili, și mai ales copiii, trebuie să se bucure de toată protecția. E bine, acest ceva este incontestabil de milenii pe această planetă. Faptul că am ajuns în situația de a avea nevoie de conferințe internaționale, de proiecte, de programe, de bune practici, ca să ne amintim ceea ce ar trebui să fie un numitor comun al umanității, empatia față de copiii de orice rasă, de orice religie, de orice etnie, din orice categorie socială. Faptul că am ajuns în situația asta este o problemă. O problemă pe care, și cu asta închei, cu oricâtă durere și cu oricâte greutăți, trebuie să o depășim. Vă mulțumesc!
Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much, Andrea. I would like to ask the technical team to help us with the video message of EU Commissioner, Mrs. Roxana Mânzatu, Executive Vice President for Social Rights and Skills, Quality Jobs and Preparedness, European Commission.
Dear Ministers, distinguished guests, you gather today around an issue that should have no place in our world: violence against children. There is never an excuse, never a justification for a child to suffer harm. And yet, too many children continue to face violence in their homes, in their schools, online. We are building child protection systems that are stronger, more coordinated, and responsive to the needs of every child. But protection is not enough. Children must be also heard. Last year, 1,000 children across Europe told us what safety means to them. And their voices now guide our work, because no one knows better than children themselves how to break the silence around violence. Today, much of children's lives take place online. The digital world offers endless opportunities, but also real dangers. We must make sure that technology works for children and not against them. And that is why the Commission is preparing an action plan against cyberbullying, also listening directly to the voices of more than 5,000 young people. Next year, the Commission will also put forward a Digital Fairness Act to ensure safer and age-appropriate content digital spaces. Children deserve to connect, to learn, and to play online without fear. We are also strengthening Europe's legal framework. First, we are revisiting the Victims' Rights Directive so that child victims receive better, age-appropriate support. Second, we are updating our anti-trafficking directive to tackle new forms of exploitation. Third, we are advancing negotiations to protect children from sexual abuse, both online and offline. Then, violence against women and girls remains one of the most pervasive and hidden human rights violations. And with the EU's accession to the Istanbul Convention and the EU Directive on combating violence against women and domestic violence, we are sending a clear message that violence has no place in our societies. Beyond our borders, we can see, however, that children continue to suffer the horrors of war, of the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children. Then in Gaza, we are witnessing unbearable suffering. I will commend UNICEF for its efforts in delivering essential services, also through EU-funded initiatives. No child should ever go hungry or be caught in the crossfire of war. And as President von der Leyen said, famine can never be a weapon of war. For the sake of the children, for the sake of humanity, this must stop. Protecting children from violence requires urgency, requires courage, and of course, persistence. It requires us to stand united across governments, local authorities, civil society, and all types of communities. The European Union will continue to do its part, but we need each and every one of you. This is a fight we all need to take together. It is our universal responsibility. So I thank you for your very hard work and let us keep it up.
I would like to invite the Vice Prime Minister, Mr. Tánczos Barna.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to welcome you in Bucharest, in Romania, and I would like to welcome you especially on behalf of the Romanian government and on behalf of Mr. Prime Minister Bolojan, and to congratulate you for choosing this very nice place. It was probably the best decision of you to choose for this conference. Bucharest, Romania, a very special place regarding the children rights and situation. We are facing different challenges, many of us, many countries, violence, and to try to find solutions, not only in Romania, but worldwide, everywhere. I will follow Mr. Manole example, a very good friend of mine. And after I will underline how important is your work as UNICEF and how important is this conference for us and for you, and how important is the eradication of violence against children worldwide. I will close my map and I will tell you about my feelings and my ideas. Maybe my colleagues will not put me in a very different, very strange situation next time when they will prepare a very nice speech for me and I will not read it. So, pentru noi, cei care am crescut în familii fără sub de violență, am fost înconjurați de dragoste, de susținere, de suport. E câteodată ciudat să vezi mii de oameni organizându-se în conferințe internaționale și luptându-se împotriva a ceva ce e absolut normal, luptându-se pentru o viață și pentru o normalitate care ar trebui să fie în fiecare familie, în fiecare societate. Probabil și pentru copiii mei este ceva foarte ciudat să vezi oameni, doamne, domni, la o vârstă de 40, 50, 60 de ani, luptând pentru dreptul, gândindu-mă pentru această scurtă discuție cu dumneavoastră, am fost șocat, văzând ce înseamnă realitatea. Și este obligația noastră, și de asta vă spun încă o dată, bine ați venit aici în România, să arătăm care este realitatea și cu ce se confruntă majoritatea copiilor în familie, în societate, în școală, într-un club de sport unde se duc săptămânal de 2-3 ori să facă antrenamente, ce înseamnă realitatea. Și este obligația noastră ca în fața întregii societăți să ne asumăm aceste boli cu care ne confruntăm și să pornim pe un drum al vindecării. Pentru că zi de zi formele de agresiune, de violență împotriva copiilor sunt din ce în ce mai diversificate. Noi ne-am confruntat poate cu alte provocări. Copiii noștri trebuie să facă față unor forme mult mai diversificate de violență și de discriminare. Întâmplarea face ca eu, etnic maghiar, reprezentant al Guvernului României, să mă încalț cu aceiași pantofi în fiecare dimineață ca domnul Manole. Pantofii unui minoritar într-o comunitate care nu de fiecare dată se raportează într-un mod corect la o minoritate etnică, la o altă minoritate și nu de fiecare dată apreciază diversitatea ca o valoare și ca o bogăție. Și acest lucru, din păcate, se transmite mai departe, din generație în generație. Și, din păcate, dacă noi, adulții, așa trăim, așa gândim, așa îi vom educa și pe copiii noștri. Provocările cu care se confruntă copiii noștri, din păcate, în mare măsură vin de la noi, adulți, care nu reușim să învățăm acasă, în familie, în societate, în grupuri mai mici sau mai mari. Următoarele generații care vin vor fi la fel de agresivi cu copiii, vor crede în continuare că bătaia este ruptă din rai și nu vom reuși să schimbăm aceste mentalități foarte conservatoare și de care ar trebui să scăpăm de mâine. Aceste nevoi trebuie să nască soluții. Și apreciez sincer efortul dumneavoastră de a împărtăși experiențele pozitive, proiectele bune pe care le-ați implementat, pe care le-ați văzut și pe care le aduceți, le puneți pe masă ca soluții la aceste provocări cu care se confruntă fiecare copil în fiecare țară din această lume. Iar familiile din România și copiii din România trebuie să înțeleagă că normalitatea poate să dispară într-o secundă, că războiul este la granița noastră și sute de mii de copii suferă în Ucraina din cauza acestui război infernal, că sute de mii de copii au suferit și suferă în continuare infernal în Gaza și în alte colțuri ale lumii pe care nu le vedem, pentru că și presa este extrem de selectivă. Și este unfair, este incorect față de acele colțuri ale lumii care nu sunt arătate și nu sunt văzute de întreaga lume și unde suferința, din păcate, este la ea acasă. Sunt convins că aceste conferințe vor ajuta foarte mult. Vor ajuta ca acele persoane care și-au dedicat viața, care și-au dedicat activitatea zilnică, prezentării acestor soluții, diversificând soluțiile care sunt la îndemâna tuturor, să poată să schimbe lumea. La rândul meu sunt implicat în multe proiecte legate de copii și văd în fiecare zi că inima lor, modul în care ies din familie, modul în care se comportă în societate personale, se confruntă cu aceste provocări, este din cauza familiei și a societății. Sper să aduceți schimbare în întreaga lume, sper să puteți contribui la o viață mai bună, mai sigură și mai decentă a copiilor, indiferent în ce țară trăiesc, indiferent din ce mediu provin, indiferent în ce familie s-au născut. Vă urez succes pentru zilele care urmează, pentru această conferință. Vă mulțumesc!
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Prime Minister. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Marius Lazurka, Presidential Counselor. Mr. Lazurka, the floor is yours.
Deputy Prime Minister, Minister, maybe I should have been given a speech in English, but I was given a speech in Romanian. So let me start by trying to attract your attention beforehand. Maybe some of you know that I'm a career diplomat, and there are many sayings about about this profession. And one of the sayings say that there are only two type of speeches: the long ones and the good ones. So let me, I will expose you to the exotic sounds of Romanian for the next 40 minutes, maybe. Doamnelor și domnilor, distinși oaspeți, în numele președintelui României, domnul Nicu Șordan, doresc să vă mulțumesc pentru invitația de a participa la Conferința ministerială privind eliminarea violenței împotriva copiilor și să vă transmit mesajul domniei sale. Dragi participanți, salut organizarea de către Ministerul Muncii, Familiei, Tineretului și Solidarității Sociale din România, împreună cu UNICEF și reprezentantul special al Secretariatului General al ONU pentru violența împotriva copiilor, a acestui eveniment, care atinge un subiect sensibil, dar vital pentru societatea noastră. De modul în care ne vom crește copiii, depinde viitorul nostru națiune. Potrivit raportului anual UNICEF 2024, situația rămâne alarmantă. 2 din 3 copii la nivel global sunt supuși regulat la pedepse violente acasă. În 2024, 1 din 6 adolescente cu vârsta între 15 și 19 ani a fost victima violenței fizice sau sexuale din partea soțului sau partenerului. Mai mult, aproape 1 din 4 copii trăiește în gospodării unde mama este victimă a violenței domestice. Numărul real al copiilor abuzați este cel mai probabil mult mai mare, deoarece multe cazuri rămân neraportate sau nedeclarate, mai ales atunci când agresorii sunt părinții sau tutorii legali. Din nefericire, în unele comunități din regiunea noastră, violența împotriva copiilor continuă să fie, într-o anumită măsură, tolerată. Unele forme de pedeapsă corporală nici măcar nu sunt percepute drept violență, ci în mod greșit ca măsuri disciplinare. De aceea este esențial să continuăm programele și acțiunile comune, atât la nivel național cât și regional, pentru a preveni violența și a promova drepturile copiilor, de a crește în siguranță, respect și demnitate. Avem nevoie de legi mai ferme, de politici clare, dar și de schimbarea mentalităților. La nivel global, UNICEF a sprijinit 119 țări la consolidarea cadrului legislativ și în ceea ce privește politicile pentru combaterea abuzului și exploatării sexuale a copiilor, inclusiv a violenței online. Un moment de referință l-a constituit prima conferință ministerială globală privind eliminarea violenței împotriva copiilor, desfășurată la Bogota în 2000. Este responsabilitatea noastră comună, autorități, familie și școală. Nu putem spune că nu s-au înregistrat progrese. Conform UNICEF, 6,2 milioane de copii afectați de violență au primit servicii de sănătate, sociale, juridice și de aplicare a legii în 110 țări, cifre care arată o creștere de 36% față de anul precedent. În plus, 759.000 de fete și femei din 19 țări au beneficiat de servicii de prevenire și protecție împotriva mutilării genitale feminine, iar 10,7 milioane de adolescente din 50 de țări au accesat programe de prevenire și îngrijire privind căsătoria timpurie. Dar pentru a obține rezultate durabile este nevoie de schimbări profunde ale unor mentalități. Eliminarea violenței împotriva copiilor presupune investiții substanțiale în educația inclusivă, în reformarea sistemelor școlare, în formarea cadrelor didactice și în sprijinirea familiilor aflate în situații vulnerabile. În egală măsură, autoritățile trebuie să fie ferme în aplicarea măsurilor legale de protecție, dar încă mai active în ceea ce privește prevenția. Violența nu se traduce, din păcate, numai în agresiune fizică, ci îmbracă forme multiple. Mediul online și rețelele sociale necesită o atenție specială. Pe lângă dezvoltarea componentei critice a educației, trebuie să ne asigurăm că spațiul online, în care copiii petrec tot mai mult timp, nu se transformă într-un mediu agresiv, de natură să genereze probleme fizice și mentale pentru tineri. Este un subiect pe care trebuie să-l gestionăm cu atenție, în cooperare cu alte state. În același timp, pentru protejarea tuturor copiilor, fără excepție. Știm ce funcționează, doamnelor și domnilor, prevenirea universală prin programe școlare și siguranță online, sprijinul timpuriu pentru familii, pentru a preveni separarea și trauma, sisteme de justiție și protecție sensibile la nevoile copiilor, care nu retraumatizează. Nu ne lipsesc soluțiile, ceea ce ne lipsește este adesea curajul de a le implementa pe cale largă. Această conferință nu este doar o întâlnire, este o oportunitate ca angajamentele să devină acțiuni concrete pentru eliminarea violenței împotriva copiilor. Vă invit pe toți ca în aceste zile să construim planuri naționale clare, cu obiective măsurabile și responsabilitate reală. Să transformăm promisiunile în rezultate. Un copil protejat astăzi înseamnă un adult puternic mâine. Violența împotriva copiilor nu este ceva firesc, ci o alegere a societății și împreună putem alege un alt drum. Vă mulțumesc tuturor!
Thank you very much, Presidential Counselor Mr. Marius Lazurka. Our next keynote speaker is going to have an online intervention. I hope technology will be on our side. Dr. Najat Malamjid, Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children. Dr. Najat, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I hope it's working. Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, and above all, dear children, greetings from New York. It is wonderful to see so many familiar faces. It is a real pleasure to join you today online and tomorrow in person. I warmly thank the government of Romania for Bogota call to action and 20 made national pledges. In addition, 11 countries from this region joined the Pathfinding Global Alliance to End Violence Against Children launched in Bogota. And I thank all member states who are here today for renewing and making additional commitments. These commitments are in line with the Council of Europe's strategy on the rights of the child, that I had the pleasure of being part of its launch in Roma and its midterm review in Strasbourg. They are also in line with the European Child Guarantee adopted in many countries. Across Europe and Central Asia region, so much is happening. I had the privilege to see many promising practices during my various engagement with states and my country visit. Strong legal and policy foundation, child-friendly justice, online safety regulation, child-sensitive social protection, integrated child protection system, alternative to institutionalization, child and youth participation and involvement, among others. But despite commitments and renewal of commitments, despite variety of action undertaken by various stakeholders, there is still a lot to do. Violence against children has reached unprecedented level due to increased vulnerability, overlapping crises, forced displacement, increased connectivity to evolving technologies, transnational organized crimes, among others. Effective and at-scale implementation of all commitments, policies, and legislation is not duly ensured due to fragmented approaches, shortage of resources, and lack of coordination. Dear participants, we are still far from keeping our promise to end all forms of violence against all children in all settings by 2030. Time is running out, and children cannot wait more. We know what to do and how to do it. We know the human and economic cost of violence against children. We know the high return on investing in child protection and well-being through a life cycle approach since early childhood. We know that preventing and responding to violence against children requires a cross-sectoral and multidisciplinary approach that against children requires a whole-of-society approach involving local communities, religious, traditional leaders, academia, private sector, and most importantly, children and young people as part of the solution. The solutions exist to prevent and to respond to violence. We have more and more evidence-based and cost-effective integrated solutions that need to be scaled up and shared between and within countries. So let's use this regional gathering to re-energize and demonstrate this commitment, to drive policy change, to learn from achievement, but also from challenges, to share experience and peer learning, and to strengthen cooperation. So let's use this regional gathering to translate commitments into concrete action that are duly informed by children's voices and their lived experiences. It is the only way to ensure that each child grows up, is supported, and lives without violence, as highlighted by Andrea. So let's make this regional gathering a turning point, as highlighted by Mr. Manole. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Very much, Dr. Najad Malamjit, and it's my pleasure to give the floor to our regional director, Mrs. Regina de Dominicis.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, I would like to start by extending a warm thank you to the Romanian government for hosting this important gathering. To minister and delegation from 32 countries across Europe and Central Asia, thank you for being here. Thank you for your continued commitment to ending violence against children. To the survivors and younger people here today, to you, my biggest thank you. We are proud to have you here, reminding us that systems and policies must be shaped together with you. And equally, I would like to recognize that children are here today from 20 countries. They have provided support, and many of you were in Bogota for the first global ministerial conference on ending violence against children. You have reaffirmed your commitment to the Convention of the Right of the Child, but also to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, with its very specific goal to end all types of violence, abuse, exploitation, and trafficking of children. 120 governments have pledged action towards ending violence against children. But we know, as it was said by previous speaker, that pledges alone do not protect children. Systems do, budget do, and people do. And people do that by working together. That's why this conference matters, because we will share and learn from each other about a smart investment, about a system, about a resilient system, an inclusive system, about services and structure that turn commitment into action and legislation into real protection for every child. This conference builds on the momentum of Bogota and positions Europe and Central Asia at the forefront of the global effort. This is a region that can innovate. This is a region where, despite economic struggle, we still have financial means to do smart investment. And we also, I think, we have a duty to export some of the solution to a different scale. An effort, as Najat has said before, that must not lose its urgency, because violence against the children is as preventable as it is pervasive. Andrea, thank you for reminding us, and starting with the statistic, more than 2/3 of children experience some form of violence, and in the region, nearly 1 in 3 children are physically punished at home, and even more are subjected to psychosocial aggression. For half of all children in Europe and Central Asia, violence and abuse by a caregiver make the home the most dangerous places of all. We have discussed and debated in each of your countries how violence disrupts emotional, cognitive, and physical development, how it contributes to poor mental health, how it increases the risk of dropping out of school, and it undermines children's ability to trust others and to feel safe. It also fuels, as it has been said by the previous speaker, the cycle of violence that are across a generation then perpetuated. Children who grow up with violence may come to see it as a normality, and adults who were exposed to violence in childhood are more likely to experience intimate partner violence, to come into contact with the justice system, or to struggle with employment, addiction, or health problems. And the economic cost is vast. It has been mentioned, but I think it's important to put a number. It's $7 trillion from the global economy every year, equivalent to 8% of the global GDP. So if we have people that are not convinced, like us, about the human rights argument, we have also a very strong economic argument. But change is happening, and as has been said, in this region, 38 of 55 countries, and many of you are present here, have now banned corporal punishment in all settings, including the home. We all know that while legislation is a critical starting point, we have been reminded by the minister at the opening that without concrete, sustained investment in prevention and protection system, and without a trained social worker, accessible family support services, and integration of responses, violence, unfortunately, will persist, even if the legislation is good. The real difference is in implementation. And that's why it's extremely important that we are here today to talk about the good practices in implementation. What can speed up and accelerate the scale of results that we are needing, but also how we can look at the new reality and the different form and shape that violence is taking, especially. And I must say that by working in many of the countries in the region, we have really discovered what are the challenges very often of line ministries, with data setting that often don't speak to each other. So it's one of the priority investments that we need to push forward. And we, as I said, we are very proud that this Legion is already leading in these efforts on delivering on the Bogotá pledges. Over the next 2 days, we can definitely learn from each other on how to accelerate further the regional cooperation and how also we can bring additional partners on board. We must keep going and we must keep focusing on results until every child, everywhere, can grow up safe. And you have asked us what will be our wish. I think for many of us it's the same. We want every child to grow up safe and protected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Regina de Dominicis, UNICEF Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia, UNICEF representative to the UN in Geneva, and Special Coordinator Refugee and Migrant Response in Europe. Moving on in our agenda, I would like to give the floor to our Child Protection and Migration Director, Shima Sengupta.
Your Excellencies, colleagues, survivors, and children, good afternoon. The thing about going last is that a lot has already been said. Having said that, there's still so much more that we have to remind ourselves about so that we can actually act going forward. So I'm really, really pleased to be here today with all of you at this landmark conference. Before I go forward, what I really want to also do is recognize and thank the government of Romania for your leadership and all the ministers here almost a year from the Bogotá conference. Survivors, young people, and children, one thing that could not have been more evident in Bogotá was how undeniably invaluable your engagement, your vision, your knowledge are to our collective ability to act on this issue. You are the compass that makes sure we are on the right course and the alarm that lets us know when we need to adjust our direction and our speed. And I hope that today and tomorrow you will continue to do so for the countries of this region. It is hard to overstate how catalytic a moment the Bogotá conference was for the global agenda on ending violence against children. For the first time in history, we know both the catastrophic prevalence and astronomical economic and social costs of violence against children. And the speakers before me have spoken to that. Fortunately, we are also the first generation to know how to stem the tide, as Najat was saying, and ensure that every child has the opportunity to grow up safe. The resounding message of Bogota was that violence against children is not just one more issue that needs our attention. It is the root cause of many of our most complex social problems. On the flip side, addressing violence against children can be transformational for individuals, for families, and for societies. And we heard the previous speakers, right from the first speaker, moving on to breaking intergenerational cycles of violence is an imperative. We just cannot let that go. The Bogota conference concluded with the impressive result of more than 100 governments making nearly 400 pledges to take bolder and more deliberate action on this issue. Governments have recognized that to fulfill these commitments, they must navigate increasingly constrained fiscal space alongside a proliferation of fragmented challenges and initiatives competing for attention. In this context, it's important to recall the 3 breakthrough solutions that were put forward in Bogota. First, universal access to parent and caregiver support to equip families with the skills, knowledge, and services to raise children in safe, nurturing, and nonviolent homes. Second, universal access to safe and enabling school environments where every child is safe to learn. This includes ensuring all schools have robust violent prevention and response mechanisms, including the provision of mental health and psychosocial support to children in distress. Third, response and support services for those children who need them. Those impacted by violence must have access to psychosocial support, health, social welfare, and justice services as part of an effective and inclusive child protection system. UNICEF has pledged to support governments and partners to scale up these solutions. Our new strategic plan for 2020 by supporting the scaling up of evidence-based solutions as well as the collection of high-quality international comparable prevalence data on violence against children. UNICEF and WHO have also begun work on an investment case for evidence-based solutions, which we hope will further assist all stakeholders to prioritize investments for greatest impact. Almost a year from Bogota, we can celebrate that the collective drive around this mission continues to grow. Personally, it gives me great pleasure when I look at the dashboard from the Bogota conference and I see that the pledges that were made by each individual government were not just pledges. They actually have been translated into action in each of those countries. And each of those actions makes an impact on each individual child. As we prepare to go forward to celebrate, and I do say celebrate, the 1-year anniversary, we are thrilled to witness governments holding multi-sector progress review sessions nationally, and they're submitting impressive reports which deliberate progress. We are also seeing additional countries coming forward with pledges and others who are elevating their original commitments because they know what works and they know they can make it work. Many thanks and congratulations to all the governments and other stakeholders who are here today, who are participating in this review and reporting processes. And more importantly, this is so important, and it should be fueled by the results that have already been achieved, both nationally and collectively. At the global level, we are propelled by progress on increasing birth registration, reducing child marriage, reducing female genital mutilation, protecting children from online violence. We also have the motivation of child protection systems, including justice systems for children, which are becoming more mature. In this region, we feel propelled by the significant progress in the reduction of children facing increased risks of violence in institutional care and inclusiveness of child protection systems for all children, including refugees and those with disabilities. I'd like to conclude by sharing the words of Layman Gowe, a Liberian social worker and Nobel Peace Laureate. And I quote, "We must remember that a childhood touched by violence is a future interrupted. But a child protected is a generation restored." So let us embrace this opportunity that we have for these 2 days, and let's continue to generate momentum to restore future generations through the freedom from violence in childhood. We know we can, and we are certain we must. Thank you.
Thank you to Mrs. Shima Sengupta, UNICEF Director of Child Protection and Migration. We started the first panel with Andreea, and I would like to close the first panel also with Andreea, a member of Romanian Children's Board. Andreea, please.
Child involvement means that we, as children, can discuss, can co-decide, and can get involved in any matter that directly concerns us. And our voices shall be the first ones to be heard, and all of the proposed solutions shall be tailored in such a manner that aligns with our wishes and our needs. And I will tell you how were the voices of children and young people reflected in this conference. So for over a month, representatives from Romania's Children's Board, supported by UNICEF, have gathered, co-designed, and co-facilitated a regional consultation. And we will share the results soon with you today. And for these 2 days, we have 10 children from 6 different NGOs, namely Save the Children, World Vision, Terre des Hommes, FONPC, National Students' Council, and Children's Board. We are of all ages, from 14 years old to 18 years old, and we come from 7 different cities across Romania. We are prepared. We are ready to play an active role in the parallel sessions, and we are ready to film videos and to make our voices heard across these 2 days and beyond. So, as I have mentioned in the beginning, ending violence against children is something we can only achieve together. And also, only together we can carry forward their vision, and we can ensure that every child, everywhere, grows free from violence and full of hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Andreea. Our next item is the launch of UNICEF regional report, Where We Live and Learn, Violence Against Children in Europe and Central Asia. This evidence-based about what is happening in your country and what you can take away and consider for your future work. Think about what you can do next. It's my pleasure to invite Mr. Aaron Greenberg, Child Protection Advisor, UNICEF Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia. Aaron, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe, yes, we have the presentation up. Excellencies, ministers, colleagues, and friends, I have the honor today to launch UNICEF's Regional Analytical Report on Violence Against Children. It is the first of its kind, and that is something. The world, as you know, now has a common international classification on violence against children. So now we are measuring violence in the same way, which makes it more and more comparable. The report follows this global framework, and the accompanying data that you will see in the coming slides tell a sobering story. Despite progress, hey, there it is. Too many children are suffering in silence. A quick recap, if you allow me, of the global picture, because this is happening everywhere. Every 4 minutes, somewhere in the world, a child is killed by an act of violence. 2 in 3 children experience violent discipline at home, often both physical and psychological. And 90 million children globally have been subjected to sexual violence. The economic cost is staggering, as was pointed out by the opening speakers, estimating $7 trillion lost each year. Violence against children and violence against women intersect in multiple ways. Now, we know this. This has been mentioned repeatedly at the opening, but let's look at the statistics. Physical or sexual violence by a partner. Shared drivers, gender inequality, social acceptance of violence, poverty, stress, perpetuate both. When mothers experience violence, children are far more likely to be both victims and direct witnesses. The intergenerational cycle continues. What children see, they learn, and they repeat. Violence harms brain development, weakens physical health, damages children's capacity to learn. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not new information. We've had this information for a long time. When a child lives with violence, every day becomes a battlefield. The home, the school, the street, nowhere feels safe. Instead of wondering, learning, or playing, they learn to listen for danger, to hold their breath, and to make themselves small. Their minds stay on alert, trapped in a loop of fear. This constant state of alarm has a scientific name. It's called toxic stress, and it reshapes the developing brain. Joy, trust, and imagination, the very foundations of childhood, are replaced by anxiety, guilt, and shame. Now, let's take a closer look at our region. The report covers EU member states, the Western Balkans, Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, Turkey, and Central Asian countries, and is made possible by your commitment to look at data on children and violence in your countries. This is data that you are reporting. This is not anything other than your reflection of the realities. However, when we look at children, the situation changes. While homicide rates in the general population, that's the yellow line you see on top of the slide, have steadily decreased since 2016, the rate for children, the blue line on the bottom, has remained stable. Between 2016 and 2023, more than 1,000 children were intentionally killed across 39 countries and territories of the Europe and Central Asia region. Most were boys, and most were children between 0 and 9 years old. This is different than the global pattern. Rates globally are higher among adolescents in other parts of the world. The high proportion of intentional homicide of children below the age of 10 in our region is alarming. It is crucial to remember that these figures do not include children in armed conflict, meaning the true burden in our region is even higher. In Ukraine alone, the UN has documented 669 deaths of children from 2002 to 2004 due to the ongoing war. Now let's turn to physical punishment. The data in this slide shows that while physical punishment is widespread across both boys and girls, boys consistently experience physical punishment slightly more than girls. 33% of boys across this region where we have available data experience physical violence by caregivers, and 28% of girls experience physical violence by caregivers. There are, of course, differences between countries, and I invite you to look at those on the slide and in the report. And it's important to understand that because of limited data points, because our measurement of violence against children is so new, it is still not possible to have a full regional analysis and trend impact. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 out of every 3 children that each of us here in the room know or meet, one of them is very likely experiencing physical punishment at home. It is important that we take a moment to reflect on what that means for the children we know, for the children we meet, for the adults we are surrounded by who have experienced physical violence as children. This slide shows the levels of physical punishment by age group. Across age groups, the pattern across Central Asia and Europe mirrors the global trends. Rates of physical punishment are highest among 3 to 4-year-olds. The dark blue line you see on the slide then declines during adolescence. Shockingly, even children between the ages of 1 and 2 are subjected to physical punishment. I draw your attention to the yellow line across the slide on display. When a child aged 1 or 2, when a toddler aged 3 or 4 is hit, is shouted at, they don't learn discipline, they learn fear. These early years shape the brain faster than any other time. Violence at this stage imprints stress into every cell. Having disaggregated data, thanks to your efforts, helps us to see where the rates of physical punishment are higher. In this slide, we can see physical punishment data from Roma settlements across the Western Balkans, which reveals significantly higher rates compared with the general population. On the left hand of the slide, you see physical punishment in the general population, still high. On the right, show that violence is often a marker of broader social exclusion. On this side, ladies and gentlemen, we see promise and hope. The light blue bar shows the actual levels of physical punishment used by caregivers in each country, very high. The dark blue bar alongside of it represents the percentage of caregivers who actually believe, that physical punishment is necessary to raise or educate children. What does this mean? What does this tell us? The desire for parenting and positive parenting is growing. Parents and caregivers don't believe that physical violence is necessary, but somehow they continue to use it. We are at an important moment and crossroads. Our challenge, I would say, is to meet that desire with more information and better services and tools that can make nonviolent parenting possible, even under stress. Parents and caregivers need support and tools to realize their aspiration to become less violent in the way that they raise their children. This next slide examines the level of psychological aggression by parents and caregivers. It shows that psychological aggression is even more prevalent than physical punishment. In 15 countries and territories with comparable data in our region, prevalence ranges from 46% to 69%. This is incredibly high. Gender differences are not wide. Boys and girls tend to experience it the same way, but age patterns are revealing. Although not on this slide, the analytical report we are launching today shows that children as young as 1 year old experience verbal humiliation and threats. The report, the older a child gets, the more psychological violence they experience. Concurrently, physical violence goes down. In a way, it makes unusual sense. Children get bigger, they can fight back. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 in 3 children across the region experience psychological aggression by their caregivers. Let's turn to sexual violence. Sexual violence remains one of the most hidden and devastating forms of abuse. Reliable data from many countries, including in Central Asia, remains scarce, a reminder of how much more work is still needed on measurement and reporting. But as you can see from this slide, from 19 countries across the European Union, prevalence among women who experience sexual violence before the age of 15 can be up to 14%. It is very important to underscore that countries with stronger protection and reporting systems often record higher prevalence because survivors are more willing to disclose, not because sexual violence is more common. The scale of sexual violence against women and girls is staggering. Across Europe, an estimated 37 million girls and women experienced sexual assault before they turned 18. And we continue to learn about whether and how women and adolescents report sexual abuse. And this is incredibly important. The prevalence is high. How is it being reported? Among women who experience sexual violence in childhood, between 27% and 70% reported the incident or sought help. This is good. But as this slide illustrates, the people that women and girls turn to most often are usually men known to the child, often with families or circles of trust within. This is telling. On the one hand, disclosure is high in many countries. However, reporting through official channels remains low. To me, the message of this slide is clear. Trust in services and systems must be strengthened to ensure empathy, support, and outreach. Services and reporting need to be informed by the voices of survivors. We must listen to what they tell us. If a woman or a child is interviewed 2 to 4 times by the police, prosecutors, and social workers, why would they report to formal channels? If a woman or child feels uncomfortable with the forensic medical examination or does not trust that she will be protected from further harm when she goes home, why would we expect her to engage the services and systems that have been put in place to respond? Ladies and gentlemen, there is also a rising frontier of risk It's been mentioned, the digital world. I'm going to spend a little time on this. UNICEF research across 12 countries show that 1 in 5 internet-using children, 20%, face online sexual exploitation or abuse in the past year. Interpol's database now contains over 30 million unique images and videos of child sexual abuse, growing by millions each year. Reports to the U.S. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reached 36 million reports in 2023. And for the first time ever this year, and this was just a few weeks ago, the U.S. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has released mid-year data for 2025. When compared to the first 6 months of 2024, reports to their cyber tip line show that online sexual solicitation, that is, adults and others who are soliciting sex from minors, has grown from 293,000 reports to 518,000 reports. And artificial intelligence-generated child sexual abuse exploitation exploded from 7,000 reports to 440,000 reports. This means that perpetrators are using AI-generated images of real kids to make it look like they are naked or being exposed or exploited, and they're circulating these images. 7,000 reports to 440,000 reports. We're seeing a massive jump in new and evolving crimes targeting children. This is a crisis of scale and of permanence. Every image represents a child still being victimized each time it is viewed or shared. A photo or video that should have never existed or shared becomes a lifetime sentence for the child in it. Ladies and gentlemen, the line between online and offline exploitation has disappeared. Children are groomed, coerced, and extorted, sometimes by strangers, often by peers, and increasingly by organized networks. This next slide looks at the pervasive of bullying, face-to-face bullying. Bullying is a pressing issue in classrooms and in communities, and across our region, the prevalence of bullying ranges between below 5%, and I welcome you to look at some of the countries in the report, to above 25% in some countries. As you can see from this slide, on average, every 10th child in the region is bullied at least 2 or 3 times a month. So the registration of a bullying event is when it happens up to 2 or 3 times a month. On average, 15% of children across the region are being cyberbullied, with higher rates for children under the age of 13. Behind these broad statistics, the numbers reveal that boys are more likely to bully or cyberbully others than girls. Boys are also more likely to engage in physical fights, while girls often face higher risks of cyber victimization. The minister spoke a bit this morning about child marriage and the prevalence of child marriage even still here today in Romania amongst the Roma population. Overall, our region, represented today by all of you, has the lowest rate of child marriage globally. Yet still, approximately 20 million girls in this region, sub-region, were married or in union before the age of 18. Ladies and gentlemen, 60%, 45% of girls amongst a specific community are being married before the age of 18 years old. Those numbers are the numbers we find in Niger. These are the types of proportions of children who are being married in conflict-ridden parts of the world. And this is happening in Europe. Data show that Roma populations are disproportionately impacted. Girls from poor families remain most at risk. I don't need to tell you the impacts of child marriage. These numbers are deeply Ending violence against children is not just an aspiration, it is a binding commitment. It is enshrined in the CRC, is reinforced through the Sustainable Development Goals, and championed through the EU Strategy on the Rights of the Child and the Council of Europe's Strategy for the Rights of the Child. UNICEF, been safely in schools and online, to provide specialized services to 30 million children at risk, and to support at least 50 countries to collect high-quality violence data. And we commit today to supporting governments to reach your targets, including for the most vulnerable, girls and boys. But crisis, as was mentioned, amplify all risks. Across our region, millions of children are affected by war, displacement, or disaster, the war in Ukraine, the earthquakes in Turkey, and the ongoing migration through the Mediterranean and Balkans expose children to multiple overlapping forms of violence. 1 in 5 children worldwide now lives in or flees from conflict. We must make child protection systems resilient enough to protect children in peacetime and in crisis alike. The report identifies concrete policy recommendations based on evidence, and I welcome you to read those in the report. I will not go into detail now because I think we need to move the agenda forward, but the first priority is really around ensuring a protective environment. This is about laws, this is about family support services, this is about safe schools. The second recommendation is to respond and prevent to reoccurrence. This is an important one for us to realize, I think, as society and communities. The levels of violence are very high, but this does not mean we want to go in and take children from families everywhere. Quite the opposite. We want to reduce the levels of violence in families. We want to support families to realize their aspiration. But we also want to respond and prevent to the reoccurrence of the worst forms of violence. And that's the second policy recommendation. And here there is no better investment than an investment in social work and in the social service workforce. And I am really, a teacher or as a professor is to an education system, is as essential as a social worker is to a child protection system. The third recommendation is to leave no child behind. That means to complete your journey on closing harmful institutions and expanding quality family-based alternatives. It means leaving in children with disabilities, counting children in migration and in emergencies. And finally, the foundation of all of this work is resting in good data. We cannot manage what we do not measure. UNICEF calls on governments to strengthen violence against children data systems, integrate the new international classification on violence against children standards to improve data comparability, include violence against children indicators in national surveys, as you are doing, and invest in administrative data quality and interoperability. Without data, we cannot see this issue. And I commend all of the governments here today for your ambitious effort, not only to count these children, but to publish that counting of these children. And I congratulate you for that. The evidence before us is clear, the data is clear, the solutions are known. Let us make the shared legacy from this conference forward action together to end violence against children. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greenberg. The data are clear. Violence is widespread, preventable, and costly. And investing in proven interventions, save lives and resources. We'll carry this evidence into every discussion today and tomorrow. We are moving to Voices of Change, Children Perspective. We will hear now the voices that matter most, children and adolescents. Their messages reflect consultation and Adelina. Cristina, please.
Thank you very much. We just heard the data, and now we're going to hear the voices of young people. I'm very pleased to introduce to you our 4 young facilitators who have worked very hard over the last several weeks, committing volunteer hours to this project. Our approach is that we did an online sense-making workshop, a regional consultation with young people across the region between the ages of 14 and 21 years old. And we had looked at youth-friendly versions of the data that you had heard here just now. The workshop was completely co-designed and co-analyzed by our young facilitators here. And I would just also like to mention Bianca, who unfortunately could not join us today. We were in total a group of 5. All of our young people here are from the Romanian Children's Board and are between the ages of 16 and 17. Not only did they co-design this workshop, they also completely facilitated this workshop in a peer-to-peer method with young people across the region. And the questions that they focused on with young people are: how do these findings make you feel? What worries you most about these findings? And importantly, what can governments like yourselves, UNICEF, NGOs do to make things safer for children? So without further ado, I am happy to introduce our facilitators. I will give Matei the floor.
Thank you very much, Christina. So, physical violence is when someone intentionally does something to a child's body that causes pain, injury, or emotional suffering. After our workshop, we discussed with young people how physical violence continues to affect children around the world. Many shared that they felt shocked